Parks Accounting, Purchasing and Payables. There will be times throughout the season when you must receive deliveries at the park, as well as times when you may be expected to run out and make a purchase for your park. This slideshow is going to cover the processes and best practices for making purchases and submitting payable items to your regional coordinator. Some key points to remember for purchasing. You should always check with your supervisor and your regional coordinator for maintenance-related purchases prior to making a purchase. Most items are stocked at regional offices or at your regional maintenance shops. For Region 1, you can reach out to Leslie or Sheila. For Region 2, Rick and Bud. For Region 3, you can reach out to Agnes, Ryan, and Nikki. And for Region 4, Nick and Mike would be your go-tos. Anytime you are making a purchase, you will need to provide your park code as a PO or purchase order number. This is going to help us track purchases and make sure that we can obtain the needed approvals for payments to be processed. It's always best to consolidate purchases rather than making multiple trips. For example, if you find you need a couple screws for fixing a picnic table, for example, and you run to the hardware store, it's a lot more efficient if you also take stock and see if there's anything else you'll need from that hardware store prior to running out. We are a state entity and are sales tax exempt when making purchases. Lastly, you should always save your receipts. These are necessary in order to review invoices as well as to issue payments. Missing receipts can lead to delayed or missed payments, and in some cases, suspension of charging privileges with certain vendors. In some cases, a centrally ordered item may be delivered to the park. In these cases, since you won't have a receipt, you should save the packing slips, as these also substitute for receipts. If a delivery is not accompanied by a receipt or a delivery slip, you'll want to reach out to your regional coordinator and let them know that a delivery has been made. We're going to quickly run through the payables flowchart, starting with what happens at the park. The park manager or staff is either going to make an approved purchase with an approved vendor, they may receive a delivery at the park directly, or they may use an approved service vendor such as trash pickup, vehicle or equipment repair services, etc. The park manager is going to be responsible for making sure that all delivery slips and receipts get sent to their regional coordinator. It's recommended to send in all of your receipts as soon as possible after a delivery or purchase is made. Every transaction should have a receipt. When you receive a receipt or delivery slip, the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and write your park code on it. If it's for a vehicle or a piece of equipment, you're going to want to write the plate number of the vehicle, or you can note equipment on the receipt. For some receipts that aren't clear, or some delivery slips that may not have a lot of detail in the description of the delivery, you're going to want to include a post-it note or note a description of the purchase or delivery directly on the slip. Here are some examples of what invoices or receipts may look like. You'll see one from Green's Ace Hardware. Up highlighted at the top, you'll see a PO number of 3025. This lets us know that this purchase was made by the park manager for Lake Carmi State Park. The one in the middle for Creed Ice does have account Ricker, so that also lets us know which park that is for, Ricker Pond. And then there's another handwritten receipt on the left from Creed Ice, which is for Grand Isle State Park. You'll see that the park manager has signed the bottom. So once your receipts and delivery slips make it to your regional coordinator, they are responsible for reviewing all of the transactions for the region. Each purchase is checked before being coded for payment, and all purchases are handled in the same way. A $1.24 purchase takes as many people to process as a $100 purchase because each receipt and delivery slip is reviewed and verified individually. After a purchase or delivery has been verified, all those receipts and delivery slips are then coded and scanned and emailed to the business office. At the business office, we receive copies of invoices for all purchases from the vendor. This vendor copy of the invoice is then matched with a regional copy of a receipt or delivery slip so that we can process it for payment. The business office does receive every receipt from all of the state parks and then verify that everything has been approved as well as coded appropriately. If the business office does not have an invoice as well as a copy of the park receipt or delivery slip, it may get sent back to the regional coordinator for review and approval. In some cases, it may also come back to the park from the regional coordinator for additional information or to verify the purchase. If the business office has an appropriately coded invoice and receipt, then that invoice is then processed for payment. The payment will be entered into the system and the payment will be mailed to the vendor. So, some top reasons that bills don't get paid. Before we go on and go through these top reasons, I do want to just encourage you to take a moment and review the comic that is in the bottom center of this slide. I thought it was pretty entertaining and you might think so too. Number 7, my dog or the park dog ate the receipt. If this happens, contact your regional coordinator to advise a purchase has been made but that no receipt is available. You may also be able to contact the vendor and request a duplicate copy of the receipt. Either way, the important thing is to make sure the information about the purchase or delivery has made it to your regional coordinator. The vendor didn't give you a receipt or copy of the invoice. So you should always make sure that you ask for a copy when making the transaction. If all else fails, email your regional coordinator with the transaction information. Number 5, the park staff does so much shopping, the office is overflowing with receipts. So this kind of harkens back to mentioning that purchasing should be consolidated whenever possible because it takes just as many people to process a $1 invoice as it does to process a $100 invoice. So before you go shopping, ask yourself, do we really need this? Do we already have it? Does my maintenance tech have it? Does my supervisor have it? Can I get it through the regional office? Did I have approval to make this purchase? Number 4, the business office is waiting to match park invoices with the vendor invoice. A single missing receipt could mean late fees, delayed payments, extra time to reconcile accounts, and suspended charging privileges. Every receipt is important. This is the case for credits and refunds as well. Number 3, the vendor calls and says they don't need the money or don't want the money. This never gonna happen. Number 2, paperwork gets lost in the mail or in transit through the payment system. Most of us will be emailing receipts, but on the rare case that you may have to drop something in the mail and that mail gets lost, someone will need to contact the vendor to get a duplicate copy of the invoice or receipt before payment can be made. And the number 1 reason bills don't get paid is that the park's receipts and delivery slips are never submitted to their regional coordinator. It's easy to forget to do this when we're really busy, but it's important to get into the habit of immediately putting all invoices and receipts in a safe place. Invoices and receipts should be emailed to your regional staff weekly at a minimum. If you're making a lot of purchases or have a lot of deliveries on a particular day or week, you may need to do this more frequently. That pretty much sums up purchasing. Just to recap, whenever you make a purchase or receive a delivery at the park, you're going to go ahead and write your part code on your receipt or delivery slip. You'll send it to your regional coordinator, who will make sure that it is reviewed, approved, and coded appropriately. They'll send it up to the business office, where we will match it up with the vendor invoices and process the payment. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Karen Schifferly, at any time. Thank you so much.